Our project race truck continues as we get our first chance to fire the engine. Then we make some custom bumpers for the front and rear. And hopefully Bruno doesn't wreck this thing out on the track. There we go. Welcome to TruckU. I'm Steele.
Hi, I'm Bruno Massel.
Now, the last time you guys saw us working on this truck, we had a lot of different things going on. First of all, we had a bearing issue up in the front. That's taken care of. That is handled. Secondly, Bruno made a nice custom dash. Very nice job. Got the gauges all ready for that. The other thing that we did, we built a massive power cord that's going from the back end into the battery and feeding power to the rest of the truck.
Now, where it's coming into in the cab is right here by the driver's compartment where there's a master cutoff switch. Now, per the sanctioning body rules, you need to have one inside the vehicle and outside towards the back. This way, if you ever get in an accident, you've got to cut off to all the power in the vehicle. This way, it'll kill the engine and it'll kill all the electronics in the vehicle, which is a great safety device to have.
Absolutely. Now, let's follow the track of power as it comes from the battery through the rest of the vehicle, right? It comes up through here, through the cab, and it comes up into this cutoff switch that Bruno talked about. Now, the power goes back down through here, through the firewall, and down to the starter solenoid, right down here. Now, the power is going to come here to the solenoid, and it's actually going to stop for a second. The only time it's going to let the power through is when you hit the starter switch, which is going to be wired up right there. So when you give power to that, it's going to let the power through. It'll wrap around the wire. It'll hit the starter, and that'll turn over the motor, and you have got power, my friend,
right.
And you are rolling down the road, right?
Now, believe it or not, we're not very far away from having power on this truck right now. I know at first glance, if you're used to looking at a production vehicle, you're thinking, wow, these guys have a long way to go in terms of wiring. But keep in mind, it's a naturally aspirated vehicle with a carburetor on it, so no fuel injection, none of that emission stuff. No problems with wiring. It's pretty simple. And with a race vehicle, you always want to keep it simple, less chance of having a problem.
Let me get this last connection tightened up right here, and that should be it for the water hoses. Then we'll be closer to getting this bad boy fired up, dude. And I know you're happy about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited, man. I'm pretty fired up about this. You know, one thing I want to talk to you guys about real quick while Matt's putting water in the radiator is we're actually going to monitor water temperature in two different locations. And that's, we've got the two different gauges here in the dash. One being right underneath the black hose he just put on. That's going to pick up the temperature coming out of the intake manifold. The other one's going to be the water going out of the water pump itself. So we'll get it on either side of the radiator. It's something they had before. We're going to kind of stick to the norm, not try and reinvent the wheel with this truck.
Yeah, I think we're pretty good. We're getting real close right now. Now, the first thing we want to do is just fire everything up and make sure there's no big fluid leaks of any kind, especially, you know, fuel on the header, because that can get ugly real quick,
Real quick. All right, Matt, I'm going to just spin it over for a little bit, make sure we got oil pressure, and then I'll flip the switch, and we should be fire in the hole. You ready?
Let's do it.
Keep your fingers crossed.
Nothing's jumping out at me right now.
Man, that sounded good, buddy.
That is good. It's a step in the right direction, right? Now we've got it going, but we need to slow it down too. So now, let's give this a break for a second. We need to do some work on those brake lines.
Hey, but we got oil pressure, we got no leaks. That's a really good start.
That is a great sign. There were already some existing brake lines on here that we're going to reuse. Now, pretty soon here, we're going to tee off of here and run some new ones. We'll get to that here in just a minute, but while it's all sitting out like this, it's a good time to take a look at the braking system and how it's all going to work in this particular truck.
Now, what we've got right here, just to show you guys, this is a proportioning valve off of an old Camaro. Now, what its purpose is to take fluid in through the master cylinder, and it distributes how much pressure is going to go both to the front and to the rear. The only thing downside to this proportioning valve is it's non-adjustable, and each one is set for each specific application. But in this race truck, we don't have one of these. We've got a brake bias instead.
Right. You want to be adjustable, and that's what the bias is all about. Now, just for a simplistic way of looking at it, think about this. You hit the brake pedal, right? And assuming that that's 100% of the stopping power is going down. What the bias is going to do is allow you to control the percentage, how much goes to the front and to the back. You want to go a little heavier on the front, you can do a 60-40 or a 70-30. It's just infinitely adjustable between those two, and you can change it up for various track conditions or whatever's going on.
Yeah, it's a situation where there's almost two master cylinders, one for the front, one for the back. That bias is controlling how much pressure is going to either or. Now, you got too much front brake in it, well, it's going to want to push, and it'll want to push up into a turn. If you got too much back brake in it, well, things going to want to get loose on you. The back end will wash out. So just a number of different ways you can help tune a truck, or this truck, and one of them is going to be with the brakes.
Welcome back to TruckU. Let's make some brake lines. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can go about doing this, and we're going to show you one way that we kind of like around here. It's nice and easy. Now, here's where we're at. We've got this T right here. We want to come down the line, make a 90 right here, get centered over the axle, and drop another 90 right there, and that will tie in with this braided line right there. So we'll hook it all together, but this is what the piece looks like right now. We need to make a couple of bends. Now, you've got these little mini benders right here, and they're nice and good to use. Problem is, there's two handles. You're trying to hold onto this. Every now and then, you got a lot going on. There's a little bit of room for error. It's always nice and easy. You tie it into the vise like this. It's going to stay right there. It's not going to wiggle around on you, and you can get a nice bend. All right, so now let's take a look at how this is all going to go. We need to make a mark. We know that this line is going to come out to, or off the T, and come out to about this corner. So what I'm going to do is make a mark at the longest point right there on the corner. So that's about it right there. There's my little mark. Now we'll come back to this in a second. Here's the deal with these little benders. You want to make sure, just a little tip right here, this will help you get the bends in the right place, because periodically you make a bend and you think it's going in the right place, then you go to put it in there and you're like, oh man, I messed it up. Well, a good way to skip that and just run a little test is you make a mark on this little test piece right here, right at 0. So we'll make that mark at 0. And what we'll do is we'll put it in here and we'll make a nice little 90-degree bend. Boom. Right about like that. Now what we want to do is measure from where the curve is done to where our mark was. As you can see, that's about 1 inch. So on the bends, we're going to gain 1 inch. Well, that 1 inch isn't much, but it sure can screw things up if you don't get the bend in the right place. So what we want to do is take our mark, which we made right there from the longest part, and we want to back up 1 inch on that where we're going to make our bends. So you come over here real quick and make your mark 1 inch back. Get rid of this mark so you don't use it. And that's where we want to make our bend. Line that up on the 0 and bring our bend down. We want a nice 90-degree bend. It's going to slide. Oh. Now we bring this back, and that bend's going to be right where we want it. Now we want to come out here to about halfway over the axle, and that's where we want to go down. So we'll make a little mark right there. Now the tricky part here is this bend needs to go this direction, so you want to make sure you put that in the bender facing the right way, or it's going to get all messed up. So bring this back out. We'll go back 1 inch again, which is right about there, and we want this bend to go down and I'm assuming, all right. So now, bring this back and take a look at it. And we're looking pretty good, because that's going to go right down there where we want it. And all we need to do is trim a little bit off the end so we can get those flares on, and we can tie it all together.
So now I want to show you guys how to put the proper flare on your brake lines. First thing you want to do after you cut it off is use your cutter here on the back side. Most of them have this little attachment. What it does, it actually cleans out the ID of the tube to get rid of any kind of burrs. So we'll clean that out, make sure that's good, and then hit the outside with the file, so make sure we don't have any problems. Now, this is a 3/16 brake line and it's pretty stiff. We don't have to worry about using a double flare. With a softer metal like aluminum, you probably want to use the double flare. It'll be a little bit stiffer. Before we go any further, I want to make sure I put the fitting on. If you don't do that, what's going to happen is you'll put the flare, you'll never get the fitting on, and basically the whole thing's junk. You got to start over. So that's the mortal sin. Make sure you put this on first. Now that that's in place, we can go ahead and put this in our proper slot. Now these are all marked for your different size tubing. This is 3/16, and so that's where we're going to go. Now the depth of this is critical too. You want to make sure it's flush with the end of the tool. So we'll tighten this wing nut down. Now make sure you tighten down the side closest to it first, because it'll grab the tube and keep it in place. You really want to bear down on this. So I'm going to go with my hands first, and then I'm going to cheat a little bit and use this T-bar to really bear down on it. Hold on. The idea is you're pressing down on this surface here to put a flare on it. If you're not tight enough, all the tool will do is push the tube back out again. You gotta start over. So here's the other part of our tool right here. Make sure you keep it on nice and straight so you have the proper flare to it, and it'll lock in place like that when we start putting a load on it. Slide our T-bar handle in and start turning it down slowly. Now the idea is you don't want to go too far. You can go a little short and go back again if it's not deep enough, but if you go too far, you're going to split the line and you got to start over again. So you want to go down until this sets in there and you can still see the edge of the tubing. So let's back it out and take a look. Maybe a little bit more on there. And that should do it. And it's just that simple. It's not brain surgery, but if you take a few minutes and take your time while doing it, you'll have a proper brake line, you won't have any problems. Get this off. And then I can go ahead and start putting the brake lines in place.
I'm assembling my engine. How can I protect it from the first critical start? We'll have the answer after the break. I'm assembling my engine. How can I protect it from the first critical start? Machine surfaces have rough and irregular finishes, which experience extreme temperatures at the initial startup. Using 5% Z-Max in the assembly oil provides maximum lubrication where it's needed. Also, use Z-Max in the engine oil supply before that first start. This tip is brought to you by Z-Max. Performance you can feel.
There you go, partner.
All right.
Welcome back to TruckU. Now that the brake lines are all in place and that's handled, we can move on to the next thing down on the list, and that is these old bumpers. Take a look at this rear bumper right here. I mean, this guy got pounded back there at least once. This thing's in a mess, dude.
Yeah.
It's all bent up. We're not gonna put you in that, my friend. We're gonna make you some new bumpers for this thing. So we've got our pipe out. I need to cut a long piece, probably 64, 65 inches. I'll get to that here in a minute because the first thing we need to do is set up these two sleeves that come out right there.
Yeah, we need arms on either side to hold the bumper into place, and the way it works, it's a breakaway bumper, so they'll fit inside this sleeve here, and they'll be able to give upon impact and slide inside. So either arm we need to make, Matt's first going to have to cut it off, and we're going to want about 18 inches on either side.
All right, I got the mark. You ready?
Yep.
Cover your ears, dude. All right, there you go.
Well, before we go any further, I want to show you guys something real quick. Now, what we need to do is, when you make a weld with round tubing, you need to go ahead and notch the end. And this way, if you notch it, you can get a full bead or weld all the way around it. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good weld. You'll just have to be tack weld on the surface. That's not going to hold. So the right way to do it is if you've got the right tools, you can use an end mill and a milling machine, or you can use a notcher. We don't have either one of those, so what we're going to do is use a hole saw to cut a hole through it. So this will be notched out like here, and the tube will fit inside. We'll get a nice bead all the way around.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Here you go, partner.
Grab me those glasses.
You got it.
Thanks, brother. So now we're going to head over to our drill press right here, and we want to drill our hole through the center. Now we've already got it marked where we want to drill the hole. What we need to do first is make sure you use a little wood on either side of it, because if not, when you go to tighten down your vise, what will happen is, well, the hole saw will go and actually bite into the sides of the vise. The vise won't give, the wood will. So that's one important point right there. The other one is you want to make sure you use a little bit of lubricant this way that your tool won't heat up when you're doing your cutting. Also, make sure you drill this really slow. You're cutting through steel. If you go too fast, you'll knock all the teeth off this thing and you'll ruin that hole saw. So here we go.
This is the long piece that's going to act as our rear bumper. It's actually going to be our rear bumper. And you know what the best part is? We're going to put some curves in it. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's built to take some punishment and some abuse. It's like my buddy Jim says, we're not building a piano, okay? So here's the deal. This is the bender we're going to use to put the benders in. It's kind of a big jacked up version of the bender that we used on the brake lines a little bit earlier, except it's got a little bit more gadgetry to it. So let's take the quick 20 or 30 second tour through this bender. You basically have the die set in between. You've got a curved piece right there and the flat piece. These are going to work together to actually make the bend. On this curved piece, really important. You want to make sure that stays good and clean because you want the pipe just to roll on that. The pipe's actually going to slide along this straight piece on the back side of it right here. So you want to lube that up pretty good so it'll slide nice and easy. There's a couple pegs holding everything in place. That's holding the flat part in. This holds the curved part of the die. Then you've got this U-clamp and bolt right up on the front, and that keeps the pipe in there holding onto that piece. Here's our little angle reader right here. I want to bend this to probably, I don't know, somewhere in between 20 or 30 degrees. So as this bends out, this will tell me what angle I'm at. Then you sneak that in, you got it ready to go. These teeth are what does the work right there. That catches on that post. We grab the handle and we start bending. Now, one bend and we're at about 7 or 8 degrees right there. So then we go down to the next tooth on that and we'll bend it again. That takes us to about 11 or 12, next tooth. And we'll keep on going until we got the bend that we want. Welcome back to TruckU. The guys at Blue Magic make products that are going to clean your vehicle. We've used them on the interior quite a bit in the past, but today it's all about the metal polish, and this is designed to restore that showroom quality to your aluminum and chrome wheels.
Now, a lot of people are hesitant putting harsh chemicals on those expensive, highly polished wheels because a lot of times it can actually damage the finish, especially talking about like my race car, for instance.
Right.
Those things aren't cheap, and they don't look good for a long period of time. About the time you bolt them on, they're about nasty and dirty. And I've used the cream before on the rear wheels, and I'll tell you something, it really brought them back to life and took just a little bit of effort. You know what, there's a silicone film that actually puts back on top of the wheel to help protect it in the long term.
Yeah, and you've got the oxidation and the tarnish and all the dirt and everything. It cleans it off, and that silicone film, like you said, it helps protect it from future elements that are going to be just trying to throw themselves onto your wheels, right? So it's also good for all metal and fiberglass surfaces. It's the metal polish from Blue Magic. This is the Clean Breeze truck screen. Now check this out. If you've got a sliding rear window, you know the deal when you're driving down the road and all the junk comes flying into the cab of the truck. Well, those days are over because the screen is going to keep the junk in the back, but it slides out, so you still have access to throw stuff in the back of the truck whenever you want to.
Now what I like, it's able to keep my dog in the vehicle when I take him with me to the shop every day. I stop at the convenience store to make a quick errand. He's going to be safe and secure in the vehicle and get some nice fresh air. I mean, check this screen out. It's rugged, it's durable, it's paw-proof. He's not getting out.
Right.
And I like the way it installs too. All you need is this 3M double stick tape that comes with it, a little alcohol to clean the surface, and you are done.
Now let's talk about options on the frame. They've got a dozen or so options from stock black, Realtree camo, and a couple more as well, and about 50 different options when it comes to the screen that goes in there, so you can really customize it any number of ways. It's the Clean Breeze truck screen. Ask for it at your local retailer. A new hood can really change the look of your vehicle, and LMC Truck has a full line of hoods for Ford, Chevy, and Dodge vehicles.
Now, if you go with a new cowl hood for your truck, not only you get that cool muscle car retro look to it, but you're getting increased airflow, which is going to lead to better engine cooling and performance. Now, these things come prime ready for paint, so that's a good thing, and they use the same latch and hinges as the original factory hood, so it's going to save you an installation, makes for a really easy install.
Now, this particular hood fits an 81 to 87 Chevy truck or SUV. You've got that handled. The catalogs are great. They're full color. They've got exploded diagrams. Basically, LMC Truck has got everything you need. This is the dashboard from our race truck, and these are the Elite 10 Color Series gauges from Glow Shift. And with this whole 10 color illumination thing that they've got going on, they're really taking gauges to an all new level.
Yeah, with the 10 different color options, they're designed to match your stock gauges, so that's a good thing. But these things are anything but stock. They're rugged enough to handle the demands of our race truck. They've got some cool features, stuff like optional audible alerts you can set into them. They've got adjustable high-low warnings as well as a peak recall, which are great options.
Now, they've also come with a 1-year limited warranty and free technical support, so that is always nice. But we need to get this back in the truck. It's the Elite 10 Color Series gauges from Glow Shift. Let's get back to work.
They've even got pink for you.
For more information on anything you've seen on today's show, check out speedtv.com or visit our website at truckutv.com.
Welcome to the Duplicolor TV Garage. Again, we're checking out this 1979 El Camino that the guys at Duplicolor fully restored 50% of. Now, this is Brian from Duplicolor, so obviously to work there at Duplicolor, you must be named Brian. Is that the case?
I guess.
It's good, though, because it's less for me to remember. Now we're taking a look at what's going on the inside. More work, right, with the right products. What did you guys do?
Well, we started with the engine and the headers. Once we had that done, then we took the VHT roll bar and chassis and we did the firewall, the inner well, and the core support just because of the durability and the finish.
Yeah, it's got a nice clean finish right there. I like what you guys did with the Wrinkle Plus right there on the valve cover. We've done that several times in the shop. It always comes out looking good, and that looks nice as well. And you even did the air cleaner up there. Nice.
Yeah, we wanted to get away from the regular chrome look, so
Right.
we used our metal cast smoke, gives it that unique look, and we use it on some of the other accessories under the hood.
It's really all about using the right products on the right pieces and parts, and that's what Duplicolor and VHT are all about. They've got a full line for everything that you need. Another great idea, I don't know who came up with it, but it was a good one right there, was to videotape everything so that you guys could follow along. You see these little webisodes that they've got on the Duplicolor TV website, and they actually show you all the work, taking everything apart, putting it back together again, doing all the work, and they explain it all step by step so you can follow along and learn how to do something like this yourself in your own garage.
All right, so we've got our rear bumper just about done. We've got all the pieces. Our bumper itself, Matt bent up and actually looks pretty good. We've got our sleeves ready. Now we just need to weld it into place.
Yeah, this is cool, and this is a good time, too, to take a look at what you were doing earlier with the notch, and if you couldn't quite envision it when Bruno was talking about it, this is what it's all about. Now, that pipe's going to lay up in there perfectly, and it can get a good weld all the way around, and that's going to give this bumper the structural integrity that it needs.
Yeah, and you know, you'll notice we're going to weld this thing in place. It's not because we're being lazy, but because we don't know if these sliders here are actually 100% level, or they might vary from side to side, and we don't know if we can get the arms in straight. So this way, we weld it here, we know it'll fit in the back of the truck.
Exactly. Well, that is going to do it. Go ahead and get started, and that's going to wrap it up for us this time. We'll see you guys next week.
Did you ever order that body?
Hurry up, man. I need to make some
man.
phone calls. I got a couple minutes left.